I know this is a terrible time, the lighting's terrible, and everything's just bad to make a video. It's kind of humid. I switch over from pants to shorts because even though it was really cold last night, it's really, really warm today. And as you can tell, the lighting's bad, the surroundings bad. I'm drinking lots of water. My heart rate's way too fast, but I'm going to make a video anyways because I want to make a point. This guy on DeviantArt, spelled UKI, said the following. Just to you have an idea, if that $30 trillion was divided by human race number, weighs about $7 billion, the result will be little more than $4 billion for each person on the planet. That clearly shows us what greed is. I'm going to translate that into proper English because they're probably from like Sweden or something. Or they're 12. Just so you have an idea, if the $30 trillion this person, I think, has, was divided by the amount of people in the world, which is roughly around 7 billion people, the result would be a little more than $4 billion per person on the planet. That just shows you how greedy people are. Okay, now, you're probably thinking to yourself, 30 trillion divided by 7 billion. Well, they're like 3 zeros apart. No, actually, they're 4 zeros apart. But they're roughly around $4,000 to $6,000. Somewhere around there. You know, it's like a few to several $1,000s per person, okay? And the number he came up with was 4 billion. So he's like 6 zeros off. Imagine if I asked you what 2 plus 2 is and you said 2 million. Or even worse, 10 million. Would you be a smart person to get information from? Especially if you thought that the Queen of England controlled 1/6 of the world and got all the rent money from all that territory. Because, frankly, in case you didn't know, but one, her kingdom gave up possession of a lot of its land besides Britain. Britain's all that's left. Everything else, they gave up. Except for maybe like a lot of tiny colonies that aren't worth anything. And also, a long, long time ago, shortly after the Revolutionary War, or possibly during it, it's like in that area, it's like 10, 20, 30 years off, the King of England had a ton of debt. He owed a bunch of people money. So he said to Parliament, hey, you could borrow the rent money and the property of everything I own, and I just live on it like a tiny little portion of it, and you give me a tiny percentage of the budget, okay? Let me put it this way. This is how much land the Queen of England rents to the world for free. This is how much the government gives back to her. If I remember correctly, she makes like, I believe it's less than $1 million. Let me go check really quickly. Okay, according to this, my numbers are way off. I'm sorry. She makes somewhere between $36 and $40 million. However, it turns out that the land that she allows the government to use is way, way, way higher. It's in the billions. In fact, you could say she's being ripped off, and yet she's perfectly fine with this arrangement. If you ever seen the Queen, she doesn't even know what an iPod was till maybe a decade ago. I remember when she first figured it out, though I don't quite remember what year it was. Now, a lot of you are probably going to poke holes in my arguments because I don't exactly remember the exact date, but you need to understand that my percentage of error is like 95%, or it's close to like 80, which is more or less forgivable because you can say, oh, it wasn't the 1840s, it was the 1890s. Well, I already told you it's somewhere in that area. I didn't tell you the exact date. I said it's somewhere in the area. You know what I mean? Like, if I say 1840 and some guy says 2012, who do you think is closer to the answer? Me. So, my point is, all of that happens, and plus the Queen attracts all of this commerce, all this tourism, just to look at her and see her and touch things that she's touched or things that used to belong to her family. So she makes the British taxpayers a fortune, and they give her, well, a fortune back, but it's like a vastly smaller fortune. It's something close to like, I'm gonna check again. Okay, according to the numbers that I'm pulling up, her finances are so vague that most people can't figure out what they are. But they range somewhere between really large numbers that are like in the millions, but they're still a lot lower than the land that she's being rented from and the money they make off of tourism. So I find it very perplexing that no one can actually get the exact numbers, but what they can all agree on is that the amount she makes the government is vastly superior to the amount that she costs the government. And also, technically, she doesn't actually own her own house. It belongs to the state, and they just let her live in it. So, just wrap your head around that.